Mermaids, Unicorns, and Princesses. This is Gabrielle Ivalani Hall, owner and designer of Sparkl Couture. Thank you for coming to our YouTube channel. Please subscribe below. So today we are going to be talking about the history of mermaids. To start us off, we got to dive right in. Let's talk about the first ever sighting of a mermaid. The Syrian goddess Aegatis is one of the first mermaids known in history, and this dates all the way back to 1000 BC. Goddess Aegatis from Assyria killed her lover and jumped into the lake out of shame and transformed into a fish. That is how the folk. So despite her efforts to transform into a fish, her undeniable beauty and human-like form would not leave her. So she became the goddess of the sea and the fish people. There's even a stigma about it in the region. You know, people had this thing where they didn't want to eat the fish because she could take on forms of fish, and they didn't want to, you know, hurt or disregard her. Okay, so let's go back in history to ancient Greece. One of the most famous stories in folklores was the story of Odysseus, right? So it was told about these very dangerous sirens and their beautiful enchanting song, and it was sailing across the sea, and told his crew members to tie him to the top of the boat and to not untie him until the songs passed, or they passed through, you know, the sirens, and told the crew members to plug their ears with beeswax. So according to the ancient Greek authors, the sirens would die if the men resisted their beautiful songs. So if they were singing and the men resisted their beautiful songs and they weren't able to lure them to their death, they would then die. So Odysseus was one of the first men in history to successfully kill a siren because he was able to resist their beautiful song. By the Hellenistic period, Greek depictions of mermaids started to resemble what we now know as mermaids and not the bird-like mermaids that were the original sirens. Century Byzantine era, sirens are now depicted as aquatic creatures. Many qualities of Greek sirens, such as their seductive, dangerous nature, was then passed on throughout the world in history and time to have mermaids depicted this way. So let's start with our history timeline. So we know that at the beginning, the first sighting was in 1000 BC. And if we're looking at the mermaid history timeline, we can go back first at 1493 when Christopher Columbus sails the seas. He had reported that he saw these mermaids in the water. He said they weren't as beautiful as they were depicted in pictures, but did resemble a human-like face with fishtails. So the next sighting of mermaids is in 1608. Henry Hudson, reportedly found in Russia in a river, and he has it documented in his diary that two of his crew members saw this mermaid sighting with him and called to the rest of the crew to come over and see. These two crew members were Thomas Hewler and Robert Reiner, and 1608, you guys, that is crazy. River mermaids. Moving on to the next sighting in history, the next mermaid sighting, that would take place June 24th, 1737 from the Quebec Journal. There is another mermaid sighting. This Quebec Journal stated that this mermaid had a fin on its back. It was black in color and about 1.5 meters long. And this story actually didn't run until a whole 100 years later, June 24th, 1873, that they re-reported on the Quebec Journal of the mermaid sighting. So it's like so weird that there's all these big gaps in history of mermaid sightings. I wonder if history was erased or people are scared to come out about their mermaid sightings, but you know, only time will tell, I guess. All right, let's go on to the next part of the history. Documented sighting was in 1886 by zoologist Carl Schuker off the coast of Canada, and this documentation sighting was documented in Cape Brooklyn Eagle and was off the coast of Canada. The story ran in August of 1886 in Canada. So crazy, 1886. What is our next big year for mermaid sighting? Our next mermaid sighting was in 1943 off the Key Islands by Japanese soldiers. This one is really cool because they actually have photos of it. They said that they saw them swimming in pods throughout off the coast of Indonesia, and they also saw some on land. They were pink skin, they were 1.5 meters, and they had long mermaid tails. So this is pretty cool. And when you look at the picture, I'll put it up right here, right now. It's crazy. They could look like dolphins, but then when you look really close, they look like human bodies. Like there's arms, and the Japanese soldiers also said that they looked like humans, but they were pink, and then they had the mermaid tails. So there we go, 1943 coming through with mermaid history. All right, let's move on to the next year. Ooh, guys, things are heating up. So 1967 is our next sighting of a mermaid in British Columbia on a ferry. There's actually a photo, I'll put it right here. And the people on the ferry saw her. She had blonde hair. She had a dolphin-like tail, is what it was described. She was eating salmon, and she has never been seen again, which is just crazy, right? Reporting was shown in the Times Cologne newspaper, and our next mermaid sighting was in 1991 in the belly of a great white shark off the coast of southern Africa. A humanoid body was found inside the shark's belly, had human-like skull and hands, but like this fish tail, this fish tail lower half. So pretty crazy, inside a white shark's belly, 1991. From 1991 to 2012, get this, you guys. So there was construction going on in underwater dams in Zimbabwe, and there was all these underwater workers that were being harassed by these mermaids, that the mermaids didn't want them there. They were like, no, get out of here. And the workers came up and told them, they're like, we promised we would never go back there, and we're never going back down to that dam again. So these mermaids stalled the whole Zimbabwe, construction of this underwater dam, and there's like a whole fleet of these people that saw these mermaids. So 2012, Zimbabwe. Crazy! Good job, mermaids, right? Like keeping the waters clean. Now we're just jumping up 1 year to 2013. This is headline news. The government of Israel offers $1 million reward for the first person to get an actual picture of a mermaid. They have this location there that, mermaids are often sighted, and lots of people are saying they've seen mermaids, but no one has ever been able to capture a photo of a real mermaid. So they say. So that's pretty cool. I don't know, I don't think anyone has captured a photo of a real mermaid to date. So maybe you can get that $1 million. Okay, our next one is just a little bit after. It's in March 6, 2013. Torsten Schmidt, a geologist in Iceland, who was 3,000 feet under the sea and saw this phenomenon, or like this crazy being, and heard these amazing sounds, and reports that he looked right into this other being's eyes, and he knew that there was an intellectual, kind of human-like but fish-like aura about her, and saw her 3,000 feet under the water in Iceland while he was doing some geo-mapping and planning. That is so crazy. 3,000 feet under the sea. So maybe that's where all of our mermaid friends are hiding.